Hey, everybody, welcome to the program WRSA Radio. I am your host, Grenadier One. What a crazy week! Wow. Um, I was hoping to get the show back to being something more focused, on mindset and mental preparation this week, stuff like that. But I can't avoid the guerrilla fighter in the room, if you will, and dismiss these happenings in Afghanistan. So a couple of weeks ago, I talked about it for a short few minutes, a little segment on the show, because we had seen the U.S. pull out of Bagram Air Base in the dead of night with no warning to the local ANA commanders. I said then that I didn't think there was anyone from the old Taliban still left, and that I thought this was mostly the warlords from kind of out in the countryside, that kind of thing. And I thought that we would see the president of Afghanistan maintain some level of power there, some level of control. Well, I was wrong about some of that, as we can see. The president and some of his underlings literally filled a helicopter full of money and fled the country with their families. So that guy's totally out of the picture, and that was very much an eyebrow-raising moment, as this, among other moments in this whole debacle, this whole shambles that's happened. My assessment of the so-called Taliban was not terribly far off. Actually, I did miss that. There are a couple of the old school leaders still in the mix because they basically had been out of the country. One of them had been arrested and been held in Pakistan for a while, and then he was in Qatar. I think one of them was in uh, Guantanamo and was released. So they had been kind of out of the mix and not really killed in the fighting is kind of where what it boils down to. But I was fairly spot on with the actual rank and file. I saw some numbers this week that said that the vast majority of the fighters were less than 25 years old. So they were not around for the early Taliban, for the early aspects of the fighting, even that took place after the invasion. And they've probably not seen the level of combat that those old school guys would have had in the early 2000s, or even well into the Obama administration, mid 2000s. But and again, that's not really that an important detail. I just found it kind of interesting, and it kind of paralleled or confirmed some of my suspicions, and where I was off, where I was wrong, on that kind of thing. But what I was my thinking was that this represented a fairly new growth, and not this long-term holdout force that had just hid away in the caves and waited. And some of them no doubt did that, but the majority of this current iteration, I guess, has been fairly new recruiting that's taken place. Well, like I said, interesting, but not terribly important to the overall scheme of things, really. What I did find to be interesting, though, about all of those young Taliban fighters is that for the last few days we've been getting images out of Kabul and other places showing these guys just trolling the hell out of us. The meme material, the troll videos, this is at a high level. It's got a level of sophistication to it. And other people on Gab have pointed out, this, and I think this speaks to that youth element. The idea on Gab is that these young Taliban have been very much exposed to Western internet culture, and they're adopting that and kind of creating their own version of it. And it's epically funny, and it's kind of sad at the same time, but crazy stuff. So I want to talk about the situation as a whole now, as this played out. Anyone who's seen the images from Kabul immediately jumps to the comparisons to Saigon and the last Americans, boarding helicopters to get out of collapsing South Vietnam. And this is after Biden told us all, a few months back that under no circumstances will we see a repeat of Saigon in Afghanistan. In some ways he was right. This only looks like Saigon. It's actually in reality much, much worse. So, give him credit where credit's due there, right? Now, currently, as I write this, there could be as many as 40,000 Americans stranded outside the last functioning NATO airfield who cannot get to the runway due to the massive number of Afghanis who are trying to get out at the same time. We've seen images of aircraft being mobbed on the taxiways with people, clinging for life to the outside of the planes as they take off. We had 2 people fall to their deaths, and one poor bastard got stuck in the landing gear doors and was beaten to death by the turbulence as the plane screamed along at, several hundred knots. And that plane had to land in Uzbekistan to remove his body. After this occurred, they had the Apache gunships fly in front of the planes down the taxiways to use their rotor wash and drive people back so they could get another couple of planes out. And then they had to shut down the runway for many, many hours so they could regain some kind of level of control of the place. There were some planes from Germany and I think another country that were inbound at the time all of this was going on, and they had to divert to Jalalabad until the runway could be reopened. Now, as of today, as I write this, the runway is back open and planes are taking off. There is, however, problems with this. The militaries of other nations are bringing home their nationals. And there's some stories, some kind of rumors going around. This includes some Afghans, obviously the ones that assisted them, so they can avoid execution and prison under the Taliban. But what we're hearing, these rumors, however, is that this means some of these flights that are taking off with very few passengers. Just small numbers of people from the particular country and small numbers of Afghans. Now let me elaborate on what that kind of means and what that really looks like here. Now, as I said, there are thousands of Afghans around the airport, and that means that U.S. citizens are having a heck of a time getting to the entrance so that they can be evacuated. I saw a video last night of it's an English-speaking woman, and she's screaming from this crowd of people to the U.S. soldiers to, let her pass these barbed wire roadblocks, only to be ignored. And she has a child. Looks very much like a Western woman trying to escape. I'm not sure what country she's from, but she speaks English and she's screaming, at them. The Biden administration has told Americans to get to the airport as best they can because no one is coming to get them and their safety cannot be guaranteed. Now, today we learned that the British Army is actually sending small detachments of soldiers out to escort their nationals back to the airport and get them out. Now, one would think, and again, I'm no genius here, that we could send our troops out to meet U.S. citizens and get them back to the airport. And then we could utilize those open seats on the foreign planes to get those Americans out of the country. Maybe. I'm just throwing that out there as an idea. One would especially think that perhaps the massive rush and surge of Afghans would not have occurred if the word was that no Afghan would get a ride out until the Americans were all at the airport and ready to load on a plane. And we've moved something like 3,000 people out of there, but only like 1,000 of them are actually it's less than 1,000, are U.S. nationals. Now, this is an unmitigated disaster. This is a fail on so epic a proportion that I don't think the U.S. has experienced a failure of this magnitude in our entire history. Just an absolute dereliction of duty. Okay, this is, I mean, it's maybe eclipsed by the embassy in Tehran. Maybe, and that's yet to be seen. We don't know what this is going to turn into. This could turn into 2 or 3 times or 10 times the number of hostages at the embassy. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I don't think the Taliban are going to do that, but it remains to be seen. Now, I think in my observations of the situations from the outside a few weeks ago, and I think that was on episode 38 that I did that, I made a simple assumption based off, my reading of the situation from just open source information that I had, and I really hadn't done a whole lot of detailed reading on it. It was just things that I had read in passing. Now, I'm not privy to field reports or signal intercepts or human intel activity reports, satellite, geospatial intelligence. And in other words, I'm not a professional, and you're not professional either, right? You didn't have any of that information either. We assumed that the people who do have that information and who are the professionals would make a better assessment of the situation than I did or that you did yourself. Maybe you had a different idea than I did. We're just spitballing here. Maybe some of us have access to people who were on the ground recently, so maybe you got a little bit of an edge in that respect, but even then, those people might only know the situation in the area that they were serving in, but not the status of the whole picture. The professional intelligence community was so far off on their assessment of this situation, and that's assuming we take all of that at face value, by the way, that we have to dismantle them completely at this point and fire every single one of them. If we look back over the last 30 years, they have consistently been wrong about every major event that has occurred. If we go back, a little bit further than that, they've consistently been wrong about a lot of major events and even a lot of the small ones. And what they have been very good at is breaking the law, committing criminal acts not only against foreign people, but against our own people. In fact, if we're honest about the intelligence community, we have to assume that they, in fact, do not represent the American people or even the American government's best interests. They don't even represent the interest of big business all that much, and in fact, it looks like the only interest that they do represent is their interest. The intel community in this country is a criminal organization, and it needs to be dismantled and never again allowed to take root in our presence. We, of course, do need an intel organization, but what we have now it's the heart of the beast, folks. I don't have any other way of putting it. Now, moving back into the situation in Kabul, late in the day after the debacle of the first planes out, President Walter the Puppet gave I guess you could call it a speech. He spoke for, I don't know, 5-10 minutes maybe, and then he shambled off without taking any questions and promptly went back on vacation to Camp David. Now, during this ramble, he insisted that he had made the right decision to withdraw. Our presence in Afghanistan was over and that we could not stay there forever, that he was calling to pull out back when he was VP, and that it was a hard decision, but he was not going to send another generation of our troops off to fight there. Well, that's all fine and good, Joe, but that's not the damn point. Okay? No one beyond the most hardcore neocon is arguing that we should be staying there. What we are pissed off about is that you and your gaggle of clown shoe joint chiefs have so screwed this operation up that it can't be accidental. And then Joe proceeded to explain that the buck stops here, and then spent several minutes blaming everyone but he and his people. He blamed Trump, he blamed the Afghan president, he blamed the Afghan army, he blamed the rain and the sun and the moon, but at no point did he or his administration shoulder any of the blame for this absolute cluster. He spun a tale that Trump had negotiated the withdrawal to happen in May, and that if he had stuck to that timeline, it would have pulled us back into war and escalated the situation. What? How does that work? How does that even make any sense whatsoever? The Taliban, and let's assume here that they were willing to hold their side of the deal, the Taliban makes a deal that says we'll behave ourselves if you withdraw in May. And your administration comes along and says, nah, 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 nah. And your position is that if you had withdrawn in May, like we said we would have, that it would have been chaos and caused further escalation of the conflict. Joe, we have people flapping around on the outside of planes like a wet sock. How is that not chaos and escalation of the conflict? And he offers no answers. Not taking any questions, not taking any calls from foreign leaders. You know, the people who may be offering to help fly our people out or asking us to help get their people out. Nah, sorry. You're on your own and you got to ride it. I'm going off back to Camp David. Sorry. Got to make some s'mores with Jill and the dog. You know, Dr. Jill has to rest what people have been calling her mysterious foot ailment. Which, speaking of, I've looked around and around in occult books, esoteric books, whatever, and I cannot find anything dealing with the injuries to the foot being symbolic or ritual in nature. I mean, there's some stuff there, but it doesn't really fit with what we're seeing. But we see it so much among these people that I've got to keep digging because I know it's somewhere. I know it means something, but I'm just not sure yet. But anyway, at any rate, the following day we get, the rollout of the generals and the SecDef speaking on the situation in Kabul. And they basically said, thank us for our service. It's not our fault. We have SecDef, Darth Colin there, wanted to make it clear that he knew that the photos of the plane load of Afghans looked, folks, like it was full of military-aged males who could be a problem. But in fact, 50% of them identified as females. So it was really a plane load of gay and transgender couples who were afraid of being thrown off the roof by the Taliban. And General Modern Milley there assured us that he was combing through the ranks, looking very hard at the troops and the commanders involved with this withdrawal, and that he was positive that he could identify a racist white male commander to place all of the blame on, and that he would circle back with those details as soon as they became available. These political creatures need to be ran out on a rail. And I would say something far worse that should happen to them, but I'm trying to avoid algorithms here, which is in itself an indictment on where we are with all of this. And I'm going to, be polite, but anyway, these people, all of them, have orchestrated something that has amounted to a pivotal moment in the collapse of this country. In fact, it's not just this country, it's the pivotal moment in the collapse of the West, because all of the NATO countries played their part in this. All of them were wrapped up in the corruption and the grift that took place in Afghanistan. All of them were involved in the drug trade and the money laundering that went on there. All of them are going to transport plane loads of Afghanis to their countries to displace the native citizens and disrupt the voting demographics. It's all rotten from top to bottom. And now the world sees it. And they will react, and that's going to mean danger and instability. The word is the U.S. is perhaps damaged the most here. Our word is beyond repair. Perhaps. Because we've demonstrated that we will conduct foreign policy, and if you aid or assist us when things go south, we will dump you like that wet sock hanging from the C-17. You'll be left on, to face the wolves on your own. Perhaps maybe if you're lucky, we'll airlift you to live in a rundown section of houses in a suburb somewhere in America, but for the most part, you're likely getting hung from a lamppost or tossed off a roof. Too bad. You should not trust Westerners bearing gifts. And that's the message that's been sent here. It's very dangerous, folks. Very, very dangerous. Taiwan, more than likely, should be looking to get nuclear weapons as soon as possible. If they don't already have them and they just haven't been telling anyone, within the next couple of weeks, they probably need to be on the phone, making some calls. And if they do have them, they might need to just go ahead and announce that to the Chinese, because they've got the big message here to everybody is Bohica. This is the second and third order effects that happen, when the current order of things comes undone and reassembles itself. It's these kind of things that get out of control, and they end up costing thousands of people their lives and ruining the worlds of, everybody, all the little people. But these elites, these people, they don't care about that. They want that chaos and that destruction. And there's this old saying, I know you guys all know it, but about being careful what you wish for. And they should take that to heart, because I think that the people of the West have seen enough of this. And I think we're on the verge of something happening that corrects this problem. But whatever happens, hold on to your pants, folks, because this is going to get wild, and we still got a long way to go. Now, that's all I got time for. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Come see us on Gab and the Mothership, and I will see you next episode.